Slow response times don't harm brand reputation. That is absolutely not true, and I'm going to talk you through why that is. Hello and welcome to Engage and Thrive, also known as EAT, your coffee catch-up with me, your host, Taelon, where we will go through common problems and hurdles that come up in business, marketing and advertising and try and demystify them. I know firsthand how complicated and confusing it can seem with all the different acronyms and all the things to do in business. So let me try and help you be better in business. First things first, let's start with grabbing a coffee. So let's start by myth busting. Firstly, the 101. Slow response times absolutely do damage your brand reputation. If you think about it from a customer experience, right? Your response time shows essentially how much you care about them and value them. So this can not only cost you a sale, but can cost you your whole reputation. Because if someone is just sending a message, whether on social media or via email or trying to ring you, and they don't get a response and they're not even your customer, they can also have an impact on your brand by spreading bad word of mouth before you've even got started with them. There was a recent study done, which I will link in the show notes, which actually says that 70% of customers expect a response within 24 hours. And then they're talking about an optimum response time being 5 to 10 minutes. Now, I'm not saying that's what you should be doing or that you all need to be sitting on your email and phone and responding straight away. But it's about understanding how to manage those response times depending on your communication channel and depending on the priority of the communication, which we'll go through further on today. What I will say is obviously it does depend on your industry and your product or service as to the expected response time. But I think one thing that people forget is there's still a person, a human at the end of that, sending that message. So you need to put yourself in their shoes and think, what is a realistic response time I would expect based on what information I'm asking for? And now this is going to seem like a very harsh comment, but if you have channels of communication and you don't respond, it's as good as not having a channel of communication. So for example, if you have social media accounts and you don't respond to messages, don't bother having the accounts. Again, I say this because I can give you so many examples of even my interactions with brands in my personal life where I just think you've taken so long to respond or you've just never responded. Why do you even offer that as an opportunity to send a message? As always, let's go through vocab. So the first one today is response time, which is basically the time to reply to someone's message, whether it's an email or whether it's an inbox message on social media. And there are ways that you can actually track this. So for example, in Meta Business Suite, it gives you a percentage response rate and a actual time. So it sees and then it puts it on your Facebook page, the percentage of response and the time that people would expect, fast reply, etc. The next one is lead. So this is someone who has shown an interest in your product or service. That doesn't even mean they're an existing customer. They just want information about your product or service. The next one is chatbot. So these have been around before the big hype of like AI, and essentially it is a form of AI though that you can train, condition, set up to have certain conversations with people without needing a human. Again, we'll go into this further when we go to the takeaways. The next one is Autoresponder. So this typically is used on emails. So if you submit a lead inquiry or request for information from a brand, and then you get an automatic email back to say, thank you, we've received your information. And the next one is CX, customer experience, which at the end of the day is the most important part when you're thinking about your response time for your different communication channels. You need to think about what's the experience from a customer and what are the different touch points. So today we're going to go through 3 key takeaways, which are essentially 3 best practices of handling your customer response times and how to avoid the slow response time and the brand damage that it can cause. So the first one, number 1, set expectations. This may seem really simple, but even just having your opening hours on your website, on your Google business profile, on your Facebook page, even in your Instagram bio, by having your opening hours, people then know the time they would expect to get a response from you during. The other thing you might think about is your out of hours responses. So for example, on social media, when you are out of hours, you can actually set that up to send a message to say you're out of hours or have it as an away. The same with on your website. If you're out of hours, we'll go into this in a takeaway of how you can handle that. But you may need to think about, where are your target audience contacting you from, and therefore what are your working hours? How does that feel for them? So how do you manage the expectations of your response working hours and what people would expect a response working hour during? The other thing to think about with your working hours is if, for example, you were service workers, okay, and you had a busy restaurant, and you know that when your restaurant is at the peak times, that's obviously your opening hours, and you absolutely cannot handle responses during that time. Have that and set that again in your description somewhere. Tell people if they need to make a booking, if they are reading information about your restaurant, whatever it is, tell them we won't be responding during our busy peak hours because all our staff are busy. Or potentially that's when you need to think about different tools. Or do you need to actually outsource to get some hands on deck to help you respond during your peak hours? Again, if you're thinking about it from a customer experience point, if people are trying to contact you to get to your restaurant during your peak times or get to your business during your opening hours, what's your response time to get back to them? If they have to wait 24 hours, they're hungry, they've gone somewhere else. If you're healthcare and you're a pharmacy or a doctor's, they've gone somewhere else. They've had to find somewhere else because they can't find your information. Another one is to think about if you're doing callbacks. So if someone can request a callback, there's two ways of thinking about this. So do you want them to have the ability to schedule a call so it suits their diary? Or if they've submitted their information and it says, we'll contact you back, when you contact them back, that might not be suitable for their time. So if you're doing a follow-up, potentially think about sending an email to say, I contacted you at this time and I'll be contacting you the next time during this time. Let me know if it's not appropriate. Again, this is all setting expectations of the communication, which nicely leads into number 2. Leveraging tools. So tools are your friend in this situation. There are so many tools available that can help handle all of your customer queries. And I think a lot of time it's just because teams are overwhelmed with queries, and also there's so many platforms to handle nowadays with social media. How do you prioritize which channel to check and which channel to respond to first? So by having things like in Meta Business Suite, you can have FAQs that people can click on and get basic information. You can have like 3 questions. So if it's like, what are your opening hours? Where are you located? Or how much does your product cost? Have that as predefined questions that people can ask. There's other tools like ManyChat. I've mentioned this before. It's really, really picking up pace. It's a really, really smart AI tool that you can use where you can have different sequence of questions. So if people ask you, what's your location? How do I get there? And it can continue to have a conversation. Or if people are responding to your story because you've just posted something about where you're located, it can respond as well. The other one to think about is on your website. So I spoke earlier about your out of hours communication. So on your website, you could have a chatbot. The chatbot being a game to answer frequently answered questions, or if you're out of hours and someone has a question, how can they leave the question so then your team can pick it up after without them having to submit a lead form? Or it's just a different touch point, so it doesn't feel like they're submitting a lead form. Again, another example, if you have a service and there may be a bug in the system or people don't know how to use something with your service online, how can they raise a ticket about their inquiry? So you may use tools like Intercom and Zendesk where people can actually raise tickets. So then it gets sent through to your team. And in the back end, you can then prioritize the type of bug and the tickets. Again, all of this though, managing expectations. So if you're using the tools as well, you can also say our team is out of hours, or we'll get back to you within 24 hours, or we normally, if it's a bug, for example, we normally take 3 business days to investigate this, whatever it is, you're setting expectations and leveraging the tools to help with this. And the other one I mentioned in the vocab, that is something that people almost forget to do. If you have a way of submitting information on your website, whether a lead form, signing up for a newsletter, whatever it is, set an autoresponder. So tell the person when they're next going to hear from you. If it's a lead form, okay, our team will get back to you within 24 hours. If it's a newsletter, okay, our next edition is on the 12th of the month. Whatever it is, use that as an opportunity to feed in that information. If someone has purchased something, thank you for your order. You'll get an update within 24 hours, 72 hours, whatever it is. And the final one, number 3, establish priorities. So this is where it's really important to kind of review your customer journey and the different touch points of communication of what they're going to have. And I'm talking about the full spectrum. So from someone first trying to find out information about your product or service, all the way through to they've purchased or they've visited your store, visited your restaurant, and then a follow-up. What are the different touch points and how are they receiving that information from you? So this is where it can become quite technical if you wanted to, but this is actually where it could really help you as a business. So if you have, like I used the example of a service online and you need to raise tickets, you can set those different conditions in the back about the priority of the tickets. Again, if you're selling something and people are getting an order, how can you prioritize the inquiries about an order status or a refund or delivery? Reviewing that, what tools can you use? What's your response time? As a team, how do you agree that those are the priority to respond to? Again, if you have social media inquiries and you have certain out of hours and in hours, what's your then BAU? So every morning when you log on, you spend the first hour responding to messages, and then at lunchtime you spend another hour responding to messages. Or if you have a store and it's opening hours, you know you need to have different touch points. But again, there are so many different tools that you can leverage to set these priorities of responses, so it makes it easier for your team to understand which ones to prioritize. All of that being said as well, like I said, I understand that there are so many different inboxes to handle and it can be a lot. So I would say is to keep it a clean inbox. I know for a fact that it's so easy to go into social media when you get a message, read the message, be like, I need to get back to that. And then you get distracted doing something else and forget about it. Get into a habit of making it unread, because then you may have like that little 1 notification or 30 notification or whatever it is. Or if you're a team and you've read that message, but you haven't replied, make it unread so another team member knows they need to do something with it. If you're using Meta Business Suite, then label your inbox. You can label it as a lead, returning customer, need to follow up, high priority, whatever it is. And if you're using a CRM, so a customer relationship management system, should have put that in a vocab, and all the leads are coming in, understanding the different labeling for the different stages that someone's in and what to expect to follow up. A lot of times you can actually set automatic reminders to remind you, oh, I did an inquiry call, right, set a reminder to follow up 24 hours later. Oh, I haven't heard back after a week, set a reminder to send an email. And the other thing to think about is when you're going to have high volume times, peak times. So if you know you're going to have a high volume time, plan for it. If you're going to be doing a live and you know you're going to be getting lots of messages, get a few more people involved, or manage the expectations to say, we'll get back to everyone with all your questions. If you're launching a new product, plan for it. Plan that you may have loads more inquiries, loads more messages. If you're going to be doing loads of press about your business, again, plan for the fact that you're going to have hopefully an increase in inquiries. So as a wrap up, the thing to take away is not about the response time needing to be 5 to 10 minutes, but actually just remembering to respond and having a response within a reasonable time frame to show the customer you care. Again, this could be a new customer or returning customer, because if you're not responding, that's just disrespectful and that can really damage your brand. Or if you're taking too long to reply, again, that can damage an existing relationship. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Engage and Thrive with your host Taelon, and see you next week.